Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. The most frequent comment from last week's video regarding photo accessories I wish I never bought was a request for a follow-up episode regarding the best photo accessories I've ever purchased. And me being the people pleaser that I am, wanted to make sure I delivered on that request. So without further ado, here are the top 10 photo accessories I ever bought for landscape photography. So the very first one, let me tell you something. So most tripods, when you buy a tripod, usually they come with these kind of feet, some type of a rubber foot. Now, I think that most tripods come with these rubber feet because they are generally kind of a good foot that is going to create a stable foundation on the majority of surfaces out there. But as you can imagine, this doesn't really create the most stickiness, if you will, to whatever type of ground that you happen to be on. So here is another type of foot you could use. These are spikes. Now spikes are great, but they are not great for all types of surfaces. So if you're photographing and your tripod is on moss or mud or any kind of dirt that you can actually dig this into a little bit, these are absolutely fantastic. But as you can imagine, if you're on rock or any type of rocky surface, you're not gonna be able to dig this into it. So this is not the best scenario. But this, in my opinion, these are claw feet. These claw feet are absolutely fantastic. I have these on every single tripod that I own, and I very rarely, if ever, take these off. And these are an absolutely fantastic photo accessory to own. These claw feet are amazing on any surface out there, whether it is snow, whether it is moss, whether it is mud, dirt, water, rock, whatever the case may be, these are great. So I would highly recommend checking out these types of claw feet. They are made by many different companies out there, but claw feet are absolutely fantastic. Another thing is, where is it right now? Right here, L brackets. Now L brackets, this is not anything new. I think that most people are familiar with what an L bracket is, but this right here is absolutely imperative in my opinion. I won't put this on while you're on camera, while I'm on camera here, because it'll take a little bit of time. But ultimately, they'd sit on your camera like this, and it gives you the ability to switch from landscape to portrait orientation without having to roll the camera over on the ball head. When you do that, not only are you making your setup on your tripod lopsided, it's going to get pushed to whatever side the camera is actually leaning on or rolled over the ball head, but it also changes your entire orientation. It changes your composition as well. But when you have an L bracket, you can just release it from the ball head and flip it in a portrait orientation or back to landscape. Doesn't change your composition at all. It keeps the center of gravity right on top of your tripod, so it's not leaning on, or it's not having more weight pushed to one side of the tripod versus the other. An L bracket is absolutely fantastic. Now, kind of sticking with that L bracket theme is these telephoto feet. Now, a lot of people aren't familiar with what a telephoto foot is, and what is most commonly done is if you have a telephoto lens, it usually will come with something like this. And kind of the common practice is to take one of these types of kind of Arca Swiss little plates here, and you just kind of screw it on there, and then you attach that to your ball head. And if you are one of the folks out there that is doing it like this, which I've done it like this for years before I've found these telephoto feet, I don't know why I call this a telephoto foot, but it's more or less like a telephoto bracket, really. But when you have a long lens on something like this, it twists. It never really stays intact. So you're constantly tightening these things down. And if you've ever used one like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're constantly tightening these. But if you don't use this and you get yourself one of these, once you lock this in, you will probably never have to use it again. One, it kind of consumes the entire little space right here, but it's got this little lip on the back that kind of butts up against the rear here. I can't really show you right now, but the little screw is tightened down, so it won't let me show you. But it ultimately rests just like this on the back, and it will lock it down, and it doesn't sit there and twist back and forth. You don't have to continually lock this down or tighten it. It's not going to loosen or start wiggling around or anything like that. Plus you have a much larger surface area to attach it to your ball head versus something like this right here. So these little telephoto feet are absolutely fantastic. They're not really little, they're actually much smaller than the regular plate, or much larger than a regular plate, but they are really, really nice. I use, this one is actually from Really Right Stuff. This L bracket is also from Really Right Stuff. I can tell you that in my personal opinion, their stuff is kind of overpriced, but I can also say that it is top quality and I've never had an issue with any of it. It'll probably last you the test of time. I'm not sure if that's the exact terminology or the phrasing of that, but it is very, very good quality, but it is very expensive. This little screw actually just loosened up. I was able to loosen it up, but ultimately it sits right on that bracket right there. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that little lip rests on the back of it, and that kind of keeps it from twisting around like that. So these telephoto feet are absolutely fantastic. If you've never used one, pick one up, check it out. Doesn't have to be really right stuff. They're made by a ton of companies out there as well. The next thing is this right here. A travel backup drive. Now, I was kind of on the fence whether or not to include this or not, but backing up the files, backing up the photos, that is absolutely critical. At the end of the day, all of this photography stuff is predicated on one thing, or the goal is really one thing: to enjoy ourselves in the great outdoors and to capture photos. So being able to back up those files is critical, and this is the best travel backup drive I've ever used. It's from SanDisk. It's an older one. This is 1 terabyte. Which when I got it, 1 terabyte was huge, but honestly, in today's day and age, 1 terabyte is kind of an average size. I think they make these in 5 terabyte now, but it's super fast. It is super tiny. It is rugged. It's got this kind of rubber exterior, which is really, really nice. But as you can see, super small, thin, and reliable. And that's extremely important when it comes to backing up our files. This is a SmallRig pocket tool. Now, I've used a couple different pocket tools for photography in the past. This right here is the best one I've ever used. You know, how many times are you looking for a quarter to, tighten down something like this right here, or any kind of plate? This one is, obviously it's made by SmallRig, so it has photography in mind, but it's got all of these different types of attachments or different tools attached to it on that side. It also has all of these Allen keys on this side. It is really, really nice. It is small. It works great. I think it wasn't super expensive. I got this one off of Amazon. I want to say it was like $25, but I can't tell you how many times, especially on workshops, I have attendees ask, does anybody have this or does anybody have that? And 9 times out of 10, whatever it is they're looking for is right here on this little SmallRig tool. So these are great. It doesn't take up much space at all, but it's always good to have something like this handy. Now, the next just top accessory that I've ever owned, and I've had these for years, and I've had many different versions of them as well, and it's a circular polarizer. And once again, this is kind of like the L bracket. This is not going to be late breaking information. Most people are aware of circular polarizers, but if there was one filter that I owned or I could use, it'd be this right here. Polarizer is fantastic. Not only does it cut through haze and kind of get rid of that hazy atmosphere look, it also creates the illusion that colors are more saturated. It removes reflection, removes that sheen off of wet surfaces. It is absolutely incredible. Plus, something that a lot of people don't know, a polarizer is naturally an ND filter as well. Most polarizers will stop anywhere from 1 stop to 2 stops of light. So every single polarizer out there has a little bit of an ND quality to it as well. So that can also help you to slow down your shutter speed if you need to do that in whatever type of scenario you happen to find yourself in. So a circular polarizer, in my opinion, is absolutely critical. The next thing, I've got a list here if you keep seeing me looking down, is a good backpack. I mentioned this in last week's video. This is the backpack I'm using right now. This is the f-stop Lotus, I believe. It's the smallest bag I've ever used. It's a 28-liter pack. And what's so interesting is you can't see it on camera. I've got like maybe 12 bags on this wall here and just sitting all along over here. And they are all between, I would say, 37 liters all the way up to 60 liter. These are all big bags. And funny enough, I'm able to put the same amount of stuff that I normally would carry in a 60-liter pack inside of this bag right here, which is about half the size, which is great. So, and I've mentioned this 1,000 times, I don't have the strongest back in the world, and these f-stop bags are extremely comfortable. Shimoda bags are extremely comfortable as well. So finding that backpack that obviously it gives you enough space to carry the stuff that you need, but also enables you to have the organization in the bag while you're on location is super important. But most importantly to me is the comfort. I like to be able to keep that weight resting on my hips if I'm hiking long distances. I like a good shoulder harness. I like a good sternum strap. So comfort for a backpack perspective is very, very important to me. The next thing is a strong ball head. I actually mentioned this in last week's video. This is one from Really Right Stuff again, BH40 ball head. It is a very solid ball head. It's a little bit heavy, but spending a little bit of extra money and not getting a really tiny ball head. I know we all want to try and save weight, but there's some things I think you can maybe save a little bit of money on, and some things you can save a little bit of weight on. But honestly, a ball head is probably not one of those things. What is that saying? You buy it once, you don't, I don't know what the saying is, but it basically is a saying that talks about if you buy it one time, you don't have to keep buying them over and over and over again, versus if you try and save a little bit of money on the first time, you end up buying more to replace it, and you ultimately end up spending more money anyway. But spending a little bit of extra money, you might have to get one that's a little bit heavier than you would like, but a good solid ball head that you can get your hands on, that you can really tighten down. I love lever releases versus the twist knobs because it gives me the confidence in being able to visually see if this is locked down or not, versus the spinning kind, because it looks the same whether it's locked in or not locked in. So I'm a big fan of lever releases. That is what I always like to go for. Now, this is something else that is extremely important as well. I mentioned it kind of earlier when I was talking about the backup drives, but it's an SD card wallet. I've used different ones of these in the past, but honestly, this Pelican hard shell case here, I've used for probably the last 6 or 7 years now. And prior to this, I used maybe maybe 3 or 4 different versions of SD card cases. This is the best one I've ever used. It's waterproof, it's hard shell. You can keep a bunch of different cards in here. I've got actually more than this thing even holds, and one is just floating around. But being able to keep your SD cards secure and safe is of the utmost importance. Once again, the whole point of outdoor photography is to get in the great outdoors and to capture wonderful photographs and enjoy the overall experience. So being able to protect these photographs is extremely important. So Pelican SD card case is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend this specific one. And the last, and certainly not least, I know that I feel like I've been going super fast on this one, but there's 10 different things to go through here, so I want to make sure that I am cognizant of everyone's time, but it's this right here. This rocket blower is one of the most useful things, not only for just blowing off the lenses. That's probably half of what I use this for. Half of the other time, I'm blowing off whether it's filters or just the camera itself. I am constantly blowing out the eyepiece, flipping up the back LCD and blowing underneath that, buttons, everything, all of my gear. I almost always, after, not every trip, but maybe every couple of trips, just kind of go through everything and just blow it off. You'd be amazed at how much stuff gets in the little nooks and crannies and crevices of all of this stuff. And a rocket blower is absolutely fantastic. This is way, way better than pressurized air, because pressurized air, not only does it have chemicals in it, but it also shoots out some type of moisture as well. So if you're trying to blow buttons off or inside any kind of sensitive components of anything, you don't want to be shooting moisture in there. So this rocket blower, fantastic. I don't remember how much these are. They're not much, $10, $12. And this is amazing. This is actually, the brand of this is Giotto's. I was going to say rocket blower, so I don't know if rocket blower is a brand or not, or just the style. I'm not sure, but these are worth their weight in gold. They don't break or anything. I've had this one for years as well, so they're great. And those are the 10 accessories. Now, I wasn't talking about camera bodies or lenses or anything like that. These are the accessories that go on the things that make my life easier when it comes to photography. And I absolutely would feel, and I don't like to use this term too often, like essential or game-changing things, but these are the most critical things that are accessory related for my landscape photography. So I do hope you found that information helpful. And before I do wrap up this week's video, I do just want to say a big thanks to the longtime sponsor of the channel, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace provides a robust and beautiful online platform to develop your website. You can showcase your photography using Squarespace's new Blueprint design system to help guide you through the options to building your online presence from the ground up. You can even display your photography using Squarespace's flexible website design templates and customize the layout in order to make it your own. And with Squarespace's online store feature, you'll have access to all the tools you need to start selling your physical goods, digital content, or service products online with ease. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So I do hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you have any questions about any of the accessories that I covered in this week's video, please leave those in the comment section below, and I will do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And I really do hope that you enjoyed this kind of two-part series. Last week was the things that I wish I didn't buy. This week are the things that I am so glad I did purchase, and I would highly recommend others purchase that are primarily outdoor photographers. I rarely ever talk about gear on this channel, and I feel like ever since I switched to the Nikon camera, I did 2 videos on that a couple months ago, and this is a 2-part series here. So I've talked about gear much more than normal over the past 2 months. So this will probably be my last kind of gear related video for a little while. I'll kind of get back to the other things of improving photography, whether that's on location, camera techniques, or photo editing, of course, which I absolutely love to talk about. But I do hope you enjoyed this week's video. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. And if you enjoyed it, if you could, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.